And we're live. Hi guys, welcome to the Fandom Feels book club. This is the first episode of the official book club for the fandom.net, and we are super excited. We hope you love it. I hope you talk in our chat, ask some questions, throw out some comments on YouTube and on Twitter with the hashtag Fandom Feels. We'll be following along, we'll be shouting out to you along the way as we go. So today I am with Ellie and Nat. Say hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
Greetings.
And we are going to be talking about Veronica Rossi's Under the Never Sky series. So the whole concept we wanted to go with for this book club, which I think is a great one, is like we all love the Hunger Games and we all love Divergent and stuff like that, but it's kind of stuff that everybody's read, everybody kind of knows. It's been talked about to death. So we want to talk about the stuff that we love that hasn't been covered so much, but so deserves to be because it's so good. So that's what we're starting off with today. If you have not read the Under the Never Sky series, be aware that this is going to be chock full of spoilers. So if you've only read a couple books, we're going to break down when the spoilers are coming so that you know to go away. So if you've only read the first two but have not read the third, we will say, okay, now we're going to talk about Into the Still Blue. If you haven't read that, now is the time to leave. We'll see you later. Bye-bye. So be prepared for that. All right, so let's start with some general impressions on this series. Girls?
General impression? Well, I believe that Dobby has something to say about that.
Well, let's talk about, first of all, I know we all kind of struggled just a wee bit in the beginning of the series because it is a little slow, coming out the gate. How did that affect your reading experience overall?
So I think it was actually you, Kate, that warned me going in that it was a little slow at the beginning, but I was like, oh, whatever, it's a YA, I'll be fine, we're good. So I started the book in August, and usually, like, I read a book in, like, 2 days when I get into it, like, that's it. Come October, I put it down because October, November, December was like an avalanche of books I wanted to read. And I wasn't getting into it, and I was getting so frustrated that I wasn't getting into it because everybody was telling me that the ending was so worth it. So I was trying to power through, but having trouble. And as it turns out, it seems that I stopped literally right before it got good. Because the moment I picked it up again, finished it in 2 days. But that was about 5 months later.
Yeah, I think I didn't do the pause on that, but also I should mention that I am probably one of the most stubborn readers on the face of the planet, in the sense that I have never had a book that I consider DNF status, aka did not finish. Even if it is the most horrible book I have ever read in my entire life, I won't mention which ones, but I read that sucker all the way through. But thankfully this was not one of those books. I think what it is with this one is there's a ton of world building. She's setting up this whole world. There's huge amounts of detail. There's a lot of sci-fi elements that need to be explained or you're going to be totally lost. It just takes a little too long until we really start getting into the character personalities. But once we get there, oh my god, it's so good.
I found, for me, I think because of all the sci-fi, that's one of the things that I actually did like. So I was actually caught. I caught on like right away. I think I was really interested in what was going on, and with their the realms, and just the whole idea of like being able to be in their own different worlds and their own different realms with their eyepiece. I forget what it's called now,
A
but
smart eye.
yeah, the smart eye, which for some of you nowadays might realize that that's something that's kind of like possible, but for the most part, because of that, I actually was interested in what was going on. So for me, it wasn't that hard to get into at all.
It's funny because for those of you who don't recall, the smart eye is what they use in Arya's pod reverie, and well, really in all the pods. And it's kind of this escape from reality because reality is a creepy bunker situation. So everyone's just like in virtual reality 24/7. And the smart eye, when I first read these books, it was around that time when Google tried to make it seem like Google Glass was really going to be a thing that caught on. It hasn't. But at the time, it was going to be a big deal. And I'm like, this product seems fairly apocalyptic right now. Like, bad things are coming because Veronica Rossi told me so. And then you invented this. Like, did you guys get that feeling? Did you make that connection?
Yeah, no, I mean, I read her books, and then I heard about the Google thing, and I think she had linked, she had put up a link about it and stuff, and I was like, wow, that is so crazy. That was just from that first link, and then ever since, like, then they started talking about it and stuff. I even still keep up with that idea because Google, to me, they do some really, really impressive, inventive stuff these days. But yeah, that's one of the things that I'm like really interested in seeing where they're going with it. Not that, not that the book
could it lead to a dystopian future? That's the important question.
that is a really interesting. Yeah, well, it's kind of there. It's gonna be there. It's not. I don't know if it's gonna be that deep into it, but I can't imagine it not going into that, into some of what she's talked about in the books. As far as gaming goes, as far as just even real life things. So, yeah.
I mean, we're always heading in that direction, even not just talking about like Google Glass, but as video games get more realistic. I mean, like Nintendo was just a screen and one little thing, and then flashed to like the Wii, where it has you actually moving and it sees all of your movements, and now there's all of this face recognition stuff. And
like that.
I mean, yeah. So like we're getting more and more realistic, and I mean, I'm sure we will have realms soon. I don't know if they'll be called that. But I mean, we're definitely heading in that direction. It's just a matter of whether it takes over the entire society or just a small section of it.
Fair enough. All right, I'll take it. All right. So let's see. So we've got, in the beginning of this novel, it does start off with a punch, though, with Soren and the fire and all that crap. Did you guys read that part and kind of freak out? Because even though it does slow down significantly after that, it's like, at that point you don't realize exactly what's going on with Soren. You don't know what's wrong with him. You're like, this dude's crazy. And then she gets blamed for it, which is like 10 times worse.
Yeah, it was psychotic in a way. I was like, what? I was like, why? Yeah, and obviously, like, what happened? I mean, he seemed like pretty normal, and all of a sudden he just goes like, and
I make fire.
Well, and then it was affecting everybody else too. I mean, like even the other guys, and And it was getting to this weird part, like, what just happened, you know? So, of course, that just helped me to try to want to, you know, continue reading it. But yeah, well, I definitely was like, okay, this guy needs to go. He's trouble, and little did I know at the time. So it was
Interesting.
it was, yeah. I mean, to say that, you know, the least, it was interesting, but I mean, I definitely just wanted to know what was going on. And then you know, of course, Perry comes in, and you're like, where's this guy from? So yeah, it was there's a lot of um, stuff going on, and so it was like chaotic and confusing and you know,
And fun. And then
yeah.
once we get into Perry and Arya, they're probably the couple in YA more than any book or series I've read that genuinely hated each other from the get-go. Like, as far as I show you no sympathy, I care nothing about you, I'm just going to insult you constantly, but begrudgingly I'm here. Like,
Okay, now I'm determined to think of another couple.
there are lots of couples that like hate each other on principles because that
Or like one of them hates the other.
huh, like
I mean, there's a lot where like one comes in like, I'm gonna hate this person, and then like, oh
yeah,
no, I love you.
but they both genuinely hate each other, it seems, and it lasts for a pretty significant amount of time. Like usually they hate each other for like a day, and then they actually meet each other, and it's fine. Or like a couple days late, you know, they get to know each other, they start talking, and suddenly they realize they're not so bad. These guys are together for, I want to say, a few weeks before that even happens.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it's a while. They have to trek through a whole, you know.
To be fair, in other situations, well, okay. I was gonna get into like delirium, and I'm like, well, but they didn't tell, like, but it wasn't both ways anyway. Okay, yeah, you
They
win.
didn't hate each other at all.
Well, no, but like, no, because okay, so I was gonna say it's because they were both separately conditioned to hate each other. Like they grew up, dwellers are terrible. Like moles are dwellers.
Yes. The savages is what you're thinking of. The savages.
That's what I know. And then I was trying to think of other books where the people grew up, like, these people are terrible, you're scared of them, they're awful. But even so, that's when it was usually like one hated the other, or would have hated the other, but not both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you win.
And then kind of on top of this, and I have to ask, because throughout the book, it always kind of gets to me that Perry is fairly calm about this, like before and after the situation with the Croven, when he and Arya hate each other, and when they're kind of like friendly or getting there, and then start falling for each other. This whole time, there is a feral 12-year-old following them around, and neither of them are particularly worried.
No, there's not.
Would anyone else freak out about that?
Well, first of all, he was following Roar around. And who wouldn't follow Roar around?
That is true.
But, I mean, they didn't, at first they didn't know how creepy Cinder was. He was just kind of like a lonely kid that wanted to, like, not be alone, but at the same time didn't want to be too close to people. And, yeah. So they didn't know how creepy it actually was that this kid was following them around until they had, like, started to make a connection with him.
Maybe it's like an audience thing, where as a reader, I realized, it's like, to me, I'm like, there's a feral child who could very well, like, turn around and kill them. We don't know what he's really there for, and this is creepy.
I mean, well, if I were Perry, I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, Perry, you know, he he lives out there, so he's kind of like more aware of
Although,
surroundings and more aware of the dangers out there than Arya. So if anything, he's like, oh, it's just a kid. But yeah,
however, he was the
Arya.
one that could smell the Aether on him.
Yes, he could.
So he actually knew that there was like something strange about this child. Unlike Arya was the one that was like, oh, it's just a kid who wants to be with us. Okay,
Well,
cool.
what I mean is that Perry knows. Like, I mean, if anything, he knows. He knows there, that there's something strange. But he wouldn't be all like, like, oh my gosh, freak out. Because first of all, if it was if there was any danger with the kid would have already attacked him. So he knew that if anything that maybe the kid was following them, but he wasn't going to do anything unless the kid did something. But he was more aware. What I'm saying is that he knows his outside world more than Arya does. She's the one. She just doesn't. She's like, what is going on? She's like, whatever. I'm just gonna follow this guy because obviously I know I won't be able to survive without his, help. Even though I hate him. So yeah, and yeah, poor kid.
And then, all right, so we get through the situation with the Kroven, who are the cannibals who are trying to kill Arya.
I swear, I feel like they're zombies.
Yeah, they were creepy. Like,
yeah, they're totally like. That's what I mean. Like, I mean, they're zombies maybe, but I mean, they're still like zombies in a way because they're cannibals. So.
Yeah, their entrance into this novel was the part that I was like, oh man, it is going down. Like, even though we're not constantly fighting them throughout the whole thing, but when you first meet them and Perry first fights them off, it's like, I know where this is going, and it is creepy, man. But
and Arya's just like, wait, why'd you kill them? What? What's going on?
Why'd you kill all the cannibals? You mean they weren't friendly? No,
but they were being nice. Like, they wanted to have me for dinner. Ha, 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 ha.
That was great. Here, alright. So we get through all that. And then, finally, Arya gets to Bliss, which is the point all along, to get to Bliss, to the pod where her mother is. And it's there that we find out, oh, well, her mother is dead. And it's all because of degenerative limbic systems disease, DLS, as they call it in the book. It's just DLS, and I realize there needs to be like a disease thrown at the end of that, but only in my mind and when I speak out loud. That whole concept, do you buy it? Like, maybe that's a me thing, but when I look at a disease or something like that in a book, I'm like, I want science. Do you buy it?
Maybe not in the disease sense, but I do buy that people in like a dome for generations could have some sort of like breakdown when they leave. I don't know if they would I don't know if it would be something that would be able to be deemed a disease, because I don't know if it would be like a chemical type of thing. But all of the things that happen to them, such as all of a sudden getting sick from all of a sudden being in a completely different atmosphere, I think that could definitely happen. And kind of losing your minds just from the pure shock of the different world. I do think that's possible. Mm-hmm. But maybe not in the sense of a disease.
Well, I mean, what is the definition of disease? I don't even know the actual, like...
Well,
definition of it.
disease, condition, I'm not sure what we want to call it exactly, but
I
essentially
mean,
a
I
section
would
of your
say,
brain goes to mush and you go
I would
insane.
say, yeah, I totally believe in this idea. I totally can 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 get into that idea because you know, um, like first of all, say for instance the parts of there are certain I can't even remember the organ that we don't use anymore, but there are several. But
Like our appendix?
appendix is one of them. So it's like, okay, why do we have it? Maybe it was something that we had used before, but we no longer due to the circumstances of our lives. I'm not sure, but I'm like, we had it, and then so now we have this. If you watch the 100, a lot of them had lived underneath, and then the outside was poison to them.
Ooh.
So, like those who actually were living above ground had no problem. So I'm like, as far as like being able to being using the technology that we use nowadays, there are certain things that we no longer do that they're starting to realize. Like there's something about memory, and I just glanced over this, but I know that there's something about memory in the idea of when you read actual books as compared to ebooks. They say that your memory is different. The way you memorize things using an actual book is not the same as when you read it on an ebook. You lose yeah, that's what I read. You
Honestly,
lose,
I buy the concept too, and it's kind of
yeah.
for the same reason. Like I've read plenty of books where I'm like, scientifically this makes no sense. This one it wasn't like that at all. It actually makes a lot of sense because these people through the realms are probably overstimulating certain sections of their brains and not really using others. And that's going to create dysfunction after a period of time.
Yeah, and
And,
especially when you
and
get into
that's really what it's from in the book. It's from all the smart eye use that
especially
essentially
when
they
you
can't do
consider
it
that
without it.
when they say that we only use like 10% of our brain.
Mhm.
So when you think about it, I'm like, there is that possibility. I'm like, I can totally believe this. I'm like, that is not a problem for me to like go. I don't get it. How is that possible? Because yes, it is.
All right. So for now, let's move on. Let's go to Through the Evernight. If you have not read Through the Evernight, bye bye. We don't want to spoil you. You should really read the book. It's fabulous. All right. And I say that starting because Through the Evernight is probably my favorite of the three. I'm not sure whether or not you guys agree with me on that, but that is the one that gave me the most feels.
I'm
I'd
trying to
say
remember
it's
how I rated them. It's possible.
I say
2 and
it's
3 are very close.
Yes, they are. They are.
actually I think I like the first one slightly more than the second, only because in the second one
I'm
there's a lot more.
like, what?
No. Well, here's the thing. The only reason I placed second is because it hurt a lot more than I wanted to because I'm like I want more of
Oh, I
the
like being hurt.
no I don't
Well,
I'm
I
sorry
think what,
I
what
don't
hurt, what
it
hurt
hurts and then like every time I think about certain things it still hurts so I'm like I like to minimize that in my life so
no,
I like to
I
find the
like my books to kind of destroy me a little. So
a
this
Yes,
little
exactly.
a little is fine. The second book is a little bit more than a little as far as damaging
Uh,
us goes. But I mean, yes,
Kate,
I
I get
understand the whole
tearful while I
idea.
was
Everybody wants to feel that pain. They want to feel the good. But at the same time, I'm like, no, I just want the good more than I want the bad. So I'm like, yeah, you can have bad, but give me more good. But
I
yes,
think
I understand.
a point of contention for a lot of people is that for the majority of this one, Arya and Peri are separated, so we're not really getting that like love connection. But I'm okay with that because there was so much other story going on that was exciting, and clearly it was setting up the next book very well.
Bobby. Sorry. Um, yeah, I think 3 is my favorite. Just because this one, I was so frustrated through this book, and like, I enjoy being hurt in books. Like, it's weird, but it's true. I enjoy things that make me cry and scream and yell. However, I don't enjoy it when the characters are the ones, like the main characters are the ones infuriating me. And at the beginning of this book, just the fact that they were pretending not to be there, Arya, because it was completely Arya, and Perry was just like, all right, if that's what you want. But I wanted to strangle her for it. I'm like, this isn't helping. Like, I understand where you're coming from, but now you're just making him look like crazy for trusting you. Anyway.
Well, crazy for trusting you, but then his tribe does kind of turn around and try to kill her. So there's that. You know.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not. Yeah. But
So,
like, if they knew that they were together,
they probably
would have been less likely to do that.
Well, they probably would have ousted him too. That's the problem. I mean, he's talking about, saving his tribe, but if they find that, I'm like, seriously, if you think about it, half of them left after he chose her. If he had done that earlier, all of them would have left. Maybe except for
exactly.
very, very few. So
but maybe he wouldn't have had to choose her if he had been honest from the beginning.
If what? Maybe he would?
Maybe he wouldn't have had to make that choice if he was honest from the beginning.
No, he would have either had to make that. He would have. I mean, well, yeah. If he made the choice of not being, or of saying, hey, she's with me, he would have lost most of his tribe. So when you think about it that way, it's like, okay, I can understand where he's coming from. I can understand where she's coming from, and that's the thing. Like, the thing is that with the characters, they don't do something that's out of their character. They do what they feel needs to be done. So as long as that's done, I'm okay with it most of the time. It's like, oh, okay, I get where you're, I understand where you're coming from. I get what you're doing.
Oh, I completely understood where it was coming from. I just, it was
you
so
just
frustrating.
were happy about it.
All right. So getting into this one, we really start to see all of the tribes, and it kind of blew my mind going through it because we've got the tides that are like kind of living in huts on the beach situation. It's not very glamorous. Everyone's kind of, struggling, and you think that that's pretty much the norm. The only thing you have to compare it to is Delphi so far, and Delphi's like the missing link between, in my mind, between that tribe and the Horns, because the Horns are like living it up. They've got the good life. And Delphi is like kind of that in-between space. And it's kind of weird to see such discrepancies in the tribes. Like, is it just from the environment they're in, or some just more ruthless than others, or what?
I would just say that, they've gone to this more, tribal sense, I guess, where, that technology is taken from them. So they just kind of rely on these small groups of theirs, and some, they do, each area does it their own way. Some are more sadistic about it, some are more familial. Whereas that's where I think the tides are. They're more familiar, but they do have their sadistic moments. and then like the horns, they're more, I don't know what you would call that, but it's definitely not.
They're
Um,
evil.
they're more ruthless, I guess, in a way, and how they handle things more, um, like maybe a kingdom like from the Game of Thrones or something, where they just rule how they how they can because that's their kingdom or that's their tribe. Um, and so I don't know. I guess that's the thing. Like everybody runs their own, I guess, tribe the way that they see fit in the environment that they're in. They're not about like trying to help each other out.
Okay. Yeah, and that does make sense. So we're really introduced to the horns. They're like the big tribe in this story. They're the ones who we find out eventually are working with the dwellers, and they're kind of gonna screw everyone else over. But
Oh, thanks to
that being
Arya.
put, yeah, but we get there, and Arya and Roar essentially go there on this mission to save Liv. But they get there, and Liv kind of needs no saving. She's pretty badass, and then you kind of realize uh, that she's kind of made her own life here, as reluctant as she is. And I have a question, and it's probably going to be a little controversial. But do you think that under the right circumstances, if Roar had never showed up, that she could have learned to love Sable?
I think she could have pretended to learn to love him. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
she
she
would.
could have lived her life. I think she could have lived her life pretending to be completely happy and then gone home and like had dreams about Roar.
Oh no, I'm not saying that she would have completely forgotten about Roar, because I don't think she would. But I think
Yeah,
that maybe because she was almost kind of friendly with him up until the point
or at
where,
least pretending to be. Yeah, I mean, she said he's not as bad as she was expecting him to be before, he killed her.
yeah, that's the thing. Before the betrayal, like, what would happen if she hadn't betrayed him? She's like, no, I'm gonna deal with this situation and just kind of stay here. Would the tides have gone over with them peacefully? Would that have happened?
No.
Probably not.
I think it would have kind of just stuck with the way it was before. Because, I mean, Sable was still planning to betray Perry with the whole Cinder thing. That was already happening even before Liv's betrayal. That was in play.
Oh, that's
So
true.
they already weren't going to be on good terms. Which I'm more curious if Liv had still been there, how that would have played out once Cinder was taken.
All right. So, elephant in the room. Now that we've talked about this book destroying us, on a scale of 1 to 10, how sad were you when Liv was killed?
Wait, 1 being not
That's
sad?
sad. 2 being 10 being super super sad. Like,
11.
15?
11. It goes up to 11.
I said 15, so
I must be heartless because I was gonna say like 8.
No,
I mean, no, okay. No, it actually,
probably about 9. I
yeah, probably about 8 or
no,
9.
because 10 would be that.
10 would be weeping, falling over, not being able to breathe
Stop.
while
We're not
reading.
bringing up anything that would be a 10 right now because I will start crying right now.
In regards to the previous question, no, I don't believe that Liv would have fallen in love with him due to just the nature of Sable, just because of who he is. I mean, he's super nice now because they're
Yeah.
in the beginning stages, but
I think-
eventually she would have seen his true
Right.
side Not that she didn't
Right,
already.
like I think there might have been periods of time when she could almost convince herself that he was okay. But then he would do something like stealing Cinder from Perry, and she would be like, that's my brother. And you just
I mean,
screwed
it
me
wouldn't even
over.
be like that. It would just be anything that he does. There will eventually
Because
be
he's
a moment
stable.
when that he'll show his true nature. He has to, and when she sees it, she won't like it. So I don't think that she would have ever fallen in love with him. She might have liked him. She might have grew to tolerate him for the sake of her tribe, for the sake of her family. But as far as you
Do you
know,
think she would have been able to soften him, though?
Probably
I
not.
doubt it. Because she's such a strong character. You know, I mean, like you said, she's tough. She doesn't have that soft side.
I don't mean
The
soften
only
him in
time
that
she
way.
does
I
is
mean,
war. So
yeah,
it's like,
I don't mean soften him like, oh, la la la. No, but I mean like in arguing with him and fighting with him for what she believed in. Do you think she'd be able to like break through?
I think he's probably too stubborn. But
yeah.
on that
Yeah,
note,
probably.
we've been on this subject for a while, and we pretty much covered how Through the Evernight ends, which was with Sable stealing Cinder, and it was a big deal. I totally just lisped that. Stealing Cinder.
Well,
I can't say that. They lost their lip.
wait.
Anyway,
Can we talk? Can we talk about Soren in this book for a moment, though?
okay, we can do that.
Okay, because okay, so obviously, first book, hate Soren, evil, crazy, psycho person that I just want to stab in the eye, in the smart eye. But
Yay, haha! Yeah,
um,
funny.
I'm so punny. But then, but then in the second one, so Hess is meeting with Arya to try to like find out about the Still Blue and blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden she goes in one day and oh my God, it's Soren there, and he's not in the best shape. And at first you're like, get out, I hate you, go away. But then they start working together. And the moment, one of my favorite moments in the second book is when she finally connects Hess and Sable. And Hess is like, okay, have him meet me, or have him join me at this place right now. And she flashes to Soren, and Soren's like, I'm on it. Like, that's great. That is great. So, yeah, and, oh, not to mention the little bit where Soren was bonding with Talon. That was really cute. Fishing together.
All right.
Okay,
So
I
now
just needed to say Soren. Okay.
it's
Sorry.
okay. It's okay. We're getting into the Still Blue, and we can talk about Soren more. Because for me, all right, so everybody who has not read Into the Still Blue, you're dismissed. We love you. Goodbye. All right, ready to go? So going into the Still Blue, this is the first time for me. I didn't really feel that bad for Soren even in Through the Evernight. I was kind of like, yeah, whatever. So you have some daddy issues now that we should probably be concerned about. I still don't like you. In this one, I become a little more sympathetic to him. He's actually, you kind of realize he's not a bad guy. He wants to help. He doesn't really know what he's doing, but he's trying. So I appreciate him the most in Into the Still Blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this is when you realize that, Arya had spent some time with him prior to that whole accident, and during that time, apparently he wasn't like that, so or else she wouldn't have been hanging out with him. You're like, okay. I mean, granted, he was still kind of cocky, a little arrogant, but he wasn't psychotic. So, you had to give him a benefit of the doubt. Especially when you see the conditions that they're in once they get out. and having to deal with what Arya had already dealt with, before, but seeing it in a grander scale because there's more of them, and they were just abandoned by their families or by his dad. It's a little, like I mean, I definitely felt sympathetic towards, them more so than the tribe. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the scenes in the beginning of this book, when everyone's kind of sneaking into Hess and Sable's ships and they're trying to save Cinder, and then they all get captured and interrogated, that's all kind of a whirlwind for me in the memory. It's not that it didn't excite me when I read it, but like now thinking back on it, I'm like, I know that happens, and I can't tell you a single thing that happens during it until the end when Sable decides that he's done with Hess and cuts him right open.
I know.
And
that's
I mean,
Sable's true nature right there. That's why Liv would never fall in love with that guy.
I mean, I read it more recently than you, but I just Perry's torture. Because if you remember, so what they end up doing is, in order to convince Cinder to cooperate, they've realized that Cinder loves Perry. So they basically torture Perry to make Cinder help them. And Arya and the rest are like separated from them. And at one point, Arya's father comes in, and he's like, well, but we don't know it's Arya's father yet. He comes in and he's like, I'm gonna take you to go see your boyfriend. And she walks in and she's like scared to touch him because he's like so beat up and fragile and awful.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
That was awful. And I would feel awful for having forgotten about it. Forgive me, Perry.
Yeah, that's true.
But then as they're leaving, he's like, I recognize that guy's smell. I wonder if Arya knows. Unconscious.
Isn't that always how it works?
And I believe, Kate, that's when I texted you, oh my god, he's her father!
You did. You did.
Uh-huh. And Dobby's barking again.
It's great because those of you who are watching who don't know this, Ellie is a book texter. If she knows you read the book, you get a play-by-play recap, and it's amazing because it's all of her like fresh reactions, and they're usually along the lines of what she just said.
And usually
Lots of caps lock.
Yeah, usually in caps. And everything is OMG! OMG! OMG!
So that was an OMG moment, finding that out. It was definitely an OMG moment when Sable killed Hess. That was definitely an OMG moment. And then after that, we're like, everyone's going into the Still Blue. Where, we made a deal with Sable because it's the only way to not die immediately right now. And they'll try to think of something later. But in the meantime, everyone's going into the Still Blue. So when we finally do the crossing scene, how many of us, all right, raise your hand if you considered the possibility that Perry was actually dead?
I was worried.
I wasn't even buying that Cinder was dead.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I was worried because I had a feeling one or the other had to go, and I was already freaking out because Cinder, and then having to deal with Perry, and I'm like, is this only going to be an Arya story now?
I will say,
I mean, only slightly, but I was like, okay, I'm never fully there until the end of the book. You know what I mean?
I didn't flip forward to see, which I have been guilty of with other books, where I'm so concerned this character might be dead that I'm going to flip forward the next couple chapters just to make sure.
Yes, I
But for
did.
a second, I was like, was she mine? Like,
Well, so here's the thing, and I believe I told you this, Kate, when I was reading it, is at the beginning, like when I first got the third book, I was reading it on my Nook, so it automatically goes through like the chapters for a couple things, and I glanced through, and I was like so positive that I had seen the chapters go Perry, Arya, for the entire book.
for
So
the
when I
entire
got to that
series.
part, right. No, but like I specifically checked in that book, and I thought I saw it go like that through the entire thing. So when I got to the next chapter and it was Arya again, I was like, wait, what? No, 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 no.
This is when the contents table of contents is not a good thing to have at the beginning of the book.
When it's your narrator,
No, but
yeah.
I thought I had specifically checked and saw it was every other one. So I did start freaking out at like the fourth Arya chapter in a row. I was like, no, there's no way. If we didn't see him die, he's not dead. We didn't see him die, he's not dead.
But it's not true.
What I was so hoping would happen, because I wanted so bad for Soren to have this awesome redeeming moment in this book. When the ship went down, I'm calling it a ship. I don't know, whatever. When it went down, I wanted Soren, because Soren can drive a hover. I wanted him to jump out and go save Perry and fly their hover. That's what I wanted to happen.
So you wanted him to jump out of one hover into another hover.
Into the water, go swim into the other hover, and fly it out. That's what I wanted.
But
I
when
wanted
you
Soren
assume
to
that a
kick
hover
some
is like a plane or a helicopter, that once it's halfway submerged in water, it's just not going to work.
They were starting to get it up.
They were?
Yeah. Okay, so when they went down...
Will not say that's what she said. Will not say that's what she said. Will not. All right.
When the hover went down into the water, once it first opened the whole thing and they were like, okay, we can go, one of the people with Sable started to like take over control of the hover again and lift it from the water.
Oh.
And then Sable was like, what are you doing? I didn't tell you to do that. Let it go. And then they let it go. And Perry was like, what is going on? And after that, they told Arya and the rest of them that there was no sign of life from either Cinder or Perry. And that's when I was freaking out, because I'm like, you're a liar. You know Perry's alive. You just talked to him. And now you're leaving him to die. Thanks.
I know. Right, and then we get to the
And that's also why I didn't think he was dead, because we saw him alive after the hover went down. Just for a second, though.
But then you assume his inevitable doom, or at least I did. But then, of course, he gets into the Still Blue. Oh, title moment. And he confronts Sable, and they have this, like, 2-second fight, and Sable is dead. And it was, for me, and I still love the story, I love the ending, but it was just, like, slightly anticlimactic, because I feel like they had, like,
I would call it very anticlimactic.
Yeah, they had, like, a bro down where they're just, like, in each other's face, like, huh, for a few minutes, and then...
And then it's just like, bam, bam, done.
And you're dead. Now, what did you think of that ending?
As far as the fight goes, it wasn't the fight that I had an issue with, I guess. I mean, I guess kind of, but after all that had happened, I'm like, I'm not surprised that Sable died the way he did. I mean, he's not like. I mean, I don't think we'd ever. I don't think he had ever. There was a point where he actually fought. You know, hand on. Was it one-on-one or hand-to-hand combat in the books? So you don't know his style, and you know that Perry fought because he had killed his brother. Um, so I don't know if Sable had ever actually fought in that type of situation. So I was like, yeah, I can see that. He does his killing with weapons. I mean, he killed Liv, by shooting her, and I mean, I guess he did. I mean, I guess he can fight because obviously he is, the lord of his tribe. But
he can fight.
I don't know if he can fight Perry. I mean, he could, but obviously not as well. And so, but I don't know if that was what I felt like. It didn't give me that great sense of like closure. It was more or less, I guess, because of the fact that I was really still bummed about Cinder.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it was. I think that's really what it was. I was like, I had hoped that Cinder somehow would have somehow reappeared from the ether, in some miraculous, magical sci-fi fantasy type of way. But that didn't happen.
He would just like become the Aether.
Yeah, I was just, I think I was really distraught about that because, I mean, and I don't normally, it didn't bother me in the Hunger Games as much, but the fact that Cinder was still a kid, it really did affect me in this one. That and then and the fact that he actually, like, okay, trying, okay, he he did it.
Wait, are you saying what I think you're saying didn't affect you in the Hunger Games? Sorry.
He did it knowing what he was doing. He did it knowing that he was sacrificing himself, and that's
Ellie,
what.
Are you crying?
I'm trying to control things right now.
Talking about it. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, let's lighten the mood with a little this or that.
Yes.
Wait. I have one more thing I want to talk about.
No.
Sorry.
All right. One more thing.
Sorry. I
said this for an hour. FYI.
What?
I said I lied to everyone, and I told them our time for this approximately was going to be an hour. So
yeah, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. So, okay, no, I just don't understand why Sable was trying to seduce Arya. I just don't understand that part. Was it purely because Perry loved her and it was like one more attack on Perry? Because it's not, because he should have been with a Skyer just as much as Perry should. I just don't understand that.
I think it was like a kind of like, not to sound a little brutish, but kind of like a conquest thing, kind of like because he could, because it would hurt Perry. He knows that she wouldn't be interested, but it would be interesting and fun for him to have power over her. Because he's kind of sick and twisted.
And then the Darwinian law, the getting the best, so he can get the best and so he can have the best. And he saw her as probably one of the best because he didn't have Liv anymore.
I also think it could have solved a lot of problems if he had just married Kira from the beginning, but whatever.
That's not going to happen.
That wasn't going to happen. It would have solved a lot of problems on both ends. Just saying.
That wasn't going to happen.
And then we had a book series, so I guess I shouldn't complain.
Okay.
All right.
No, you keep going.
Go ahead. No, I was like, you're this or that. Or
yes, I'm going to start our next segment. We're going to play a little game called This or That. and we're gonna fire off our answers kind of quickly, and then give our like first thing that you think of when I say it. Just say it, and then you have to explain yourself.
I'm not good at these games. It takes me too long to think, but go on.
1 second. Life or death.
I'm always like, well.
Gun is pointed at your head. Okay, go.
Okay. Pod or tribe?
Pod. I'm like, hey, I like comfort, okay?
Yeah, I would probably go with the same. I'd like to say that I'd like be a tribeswoman, but it's totally not happening in reality.
Right, exactly.
Because we're doing a web chat right now. So, all right. So next, Perry or Roar?
Perry.
For what?
Anything.
Perry.
Just
Perry.
Roar.
I'm
I
also
like.
gonna go.
I mean, I just, I fall in love with the one that's there, the one that's focused on. So I'm like, Perry.
See, that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't want Arya with Roar, but
No.
I love Roar.
No.
Yeah.
Roar belongs to Liv.
personally
No,
love
there's
Roar.
no Arya and Roar. It's
Exactly.
Arya and Perry.
No. Arya with Perry, but Roar as like a general character choice.
But Roar for yourself.
Yes, exactly.
And also for me. You have to share. I'm sorry.
And also what?
I said you have to share because also for me. See,
Roar.
Natasha likes the efficient boys. I like the funny, silly ones.
I love
Me
funny,
too.
silly. But I'm like, right, you said, like, pick your answer. I was like, okay, Perry Roar. I'm like, right, Perry, okay.
All right, here we go. Odd, Seer, or Skyer? Is that how you say it? Skyer?
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah.
If you could choose your own.
Yes.
Seer.
Seer.
I think Seer because I have a hard time seeing already. I wear contacts. My eyesight's really bad without them. So, Seer. I like seeing things ahead of time.
I don't think I would understand odd things. In Skyer, I wouldn't want to know what people are feeling. That creeps me out.
Mm-hmm. I also
It would be nice to know when people were lying to me.
and like the ability to sense things, like smell things on people.
Yeah.
But there's probably a lot of smells involved in that I don't actually want. Just to be honest. Like, some people probably smell, like, if you're an awful person, you probably smell kind of bad. If you're having that.
Oh, that's not what I thought you were. That's not where I thought you were going with that.
I'm going everywhere with that. There's a lot of smells I probably know.
Well, apparently there is. It's, Perry had noticed something about Arya during her time of the month.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't want that.
That is true. No.
I'm also gonna go with Cedar because, like Nat, I am partially blind, and it would be great to be able to see loudly. Loudly.
Loudly. So you want to be a seer odd.
So being an odd, like I'm a light enough sleeper as it is. I do not need to hear it. Thank you. All right, next. Talon or Cinder?
Cinder.
Talon.
I'd just say Cinder because he's lost already. I don't know. I feel so. And he did so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand Talon too. I love Talon, but Cinder.
Cinder just never seemed that young to me. I know he was a kid.
Yeah, I think he was the same age as Talon, though.
No, he wasn't. He was older.
He was a couple years older.
Oh, okay.
Talon is 9 and Cinder is 12.
12, yeah.
12.
First of all, yeah. Well, first of all, I like little kids, so Talon's kind of automatically. Plus, Talon was just so like happy and like helpful. And I mean, like Cinder was wonderful. I'm not saying like I have nothing against Cinder, obviously. But just like first impression kind of catches me and keeps me in, and I like Talon's first impression better than Cinder's.
I think I'm kind of in the same boat because even though I love Cinder as a character, I found myself getting more attached to Talon because I knew kind of from the get-go that Cinder was the obvious death. At least in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't come to that conclusion yet. I try not to.
I know you're deeply in love with Cinder's character and what he meant to the story, and we appreciate that.
Matt and I always seem to end up on the opposite side of these things. Sorry, go on.
All right. Who did you love to hate more?
Oh, gosh.
Or Brooke?
Who did I love to hate more?
Yes.
Soren.
Because there were different points where they're both very hateable.
I guess Soren, because I didn't love to hate Brooke. I just didn't like her.
You just hate her. You just hate with her.
I found no joy in hating Brooke. I just did. But I did find joy in hating Soren at certain parts.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because
we
Brooke
agree on that.
Yes.
Brooke has
we agree on hate
that makes her like super sympathetic as a character, and you want to. And for me, I don't know. I've kind of everyone I feel like at that point has been that person who's kind of scorned, and you feel a little sad. Obviously, you don't try to get that person killed, so different extremes, but you do feel a little bad for her. You know, her heart's broken. She feels isolated. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It is because you.
No, I mean, I did. I mean, I guess I didn't like hate. I didn't hate her. I never hated her. I just there were some times when I was like, eh. And unfortunately, I mean, and to me, the side story for Brooke, it just didn't make me like her anymore. But I was just glad that she can get over Perry. You know. So I was.
Kate, have you read that?
I've not read it, but even in the book, but you guys can bring it up if you read it.
Sorry.
It's me and novellas. I have a problem with them.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I mean, Brooke is Brooke. I don't know. I just, I'm like, obviously, Perry didn't have as strong feelings for her as she would have wanted, and so I'm like, oh, sorry, Brooke. Oh well.
Okay.
That sounds really bad and hard, but I'm like, oh well.
So next, let's go with whose death were you rooting for more, Hess or Sable?
Sable.
Sable.
I was kind of
Gabby
Hess.
agrees.
Even though he was being used and he wasn't like the big bad guy at the end and obviously wasn't the one responsible for Cinder's death, like, don't get me wrong, Sable is a repulsive human being, like, down to his core. But something about him, maybe because he wasn't so outwardly repulsive, like that snake-like person who's kind of, the politician type trying to use corruption to get his way and being very slippery.
Yeah.
There's people like that in stories that, ugh.
I agree with you, but my problem is that at the time of Hess's death, I didn't want him to die. That was like exactly what was not helpful at that exact moment.
You wanted him to die just at a better time, is what you're saying.
Like, there was a time that I was totally rooting for his death, but not at the moment that he died.
So earlier would have been better for you, is what you're saying.
Emotionally, yes.
No, I mean, for me, obviously, Sable, because what he did to Liv. I'm like, I'm sorry. You just destroyed Roar's life because of that. I can't
But you
go.
picked Harry. Sorry.
I know, no, but still, I'm like, I
I
felt
know, I know.
I actually cried so much for Roar during that point. I was like, he wasn't crying, but I was crying for him. So I was like,
Well, he was just numb.
yeah. So, you know, stable definitely.
All right. And so the last thing that I have down for this baby is what are your after the end predictions? Like, the story is over. We know there's no more coming. What do you think happens to the surviving characters?
Hopefully they you know
Like, do you think Roar ever finds love again?
I think Roar, I'd hope so. I would say yes, that he can. It won't be the same, of course, but I think I would hope that he would find it probably not within his tribe, but somewhere in the future. It doesn't have to be right away. It could be 10 years from that point because they're still young. Um, but he definitely has a lot of healing, and he's strong enough to handle um, finding somebody else. He won't be that recluse and just kind of like away from everybody. He can't. That's not his nature. So I would hope that he'd find somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope he falls off a roof again.
That doesn't sound right in the context, but
That would be a very good thing. Everyone who's read the books knows that would be a good thing. Anyway,
but yeah, I'm like, I just hope we're happily ever after. I'm like, I want Perry and Arya to, be like the king and queen of the tribe, the lord and lordess. I don't know what they call them, but or not even have a tribe. Lordess. I just or maybe not just not have a tribe. I'm like, just obviously they were creating a life for themselves there.
So
I was like thinking
they form their own democracy.
Yeah, like they create something new.
Was it a democracy? Well, they had like a council where like each
of the
3 different types of people were represented.
They were working towards that. So, that to me, I think, maybe not, but yeah, something like that.
I was kind of sad that Perry wasn't involved in leadership, but at the same time, I kind of liked the schedule he had going on.
I understood why he didn't want it anymore, though. The schedule. Mm-hmm. I have this schedule.
He did.
Let's see.
He devoted part of his morning to time with Arya, and then she went to her council meetings, and he spent time with Talon.
Yes.
And then he came back. That was his schedule. He had a schedule, and it was adorable.
So let me look at my schedule and see what I have in the morning.
So after end prediction is that he sticks to the schedule.
He's sticking to the schedule.
It's so romantic.
What was the girl's name? Clara? I hope Clara finds somebody else.
There was Willow, who was the little girl who...
Oh, I meant Willow.
With Cinder.
Yes, I meant Willow. I hope Willow finds somebody else, because she's way too young to be stuck on...
Well, they're young. That's the thing.
That's it. But it's like, yeah, you're 12. You'll manage.
But Willow and Roar shouldn't get together because that's too much for me.
Who shouldn't?
Willow and Roar.
No. Creepy age gaps.
Cradle robbing.
Though they don't have a lot of names, I believe that there are other characters in this universe, and they will both find someone else that is not each other. All right. So on that note, I think we have covered this series pretty thoroughly. Any final thoughts before we go?
Next week or next month?
Next month, yes.
Wait.
Wait,
Oh, she's gonna pull it out because she has the actual.
she has it. So Lily is going
I'm
to
ready.
do visual.
You have the
I'm
actual
ready.
book?
I do. It's signed.
Yay! And what are we gonna read next month?
Dun, 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 dun.
The Young Elites.
All right.
If you have not read The Young Elites yet, you have until March 16th, same time next month. So we're going to be on at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and it is such a good book. It is the first in a trilogy, I believe. Definitely a series at least, but I'm pretty positive it's a trilogy
That's
by
the plan.
Marie Lu. And if you haven't read her Legend series, you need to get on that as well because she is just fantastic. So how about
And it was
we
my
mark it
chosen
down?
book of 2014. And if you want to read a review, it's on thefandom.net.
Yes, it is. You just have to search for The Young Elites, and that should probably come right up. But we'll also post it on our social media a little bit after this. But so be prepared, March 16th, 6 p.m. or 9 p.m., depending on which coast you're on. And we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.